Following the critical and commercial success of Dragon Quest I was honestly a very hard task, something that Dragon Quest II had thrust upon them in early 1987. So how did they find success? What did they do? With a good old-fashioned treasure hunt. That's what, baby. What am I doing? Welcome back, ye questers of Dragon, or something like that. We are going over the sequel to the original Dragon Quest, aptly named Dragon Quest II. Go figure. This game echoes a lot of similar sentiment I shared earlier with Dragon Quest I, so go check that out if you haven't already. Simply put, I'm looking back on these games as a sort of retrospective and to hype myself up for the entire HD 2D remake of the original Erdrick trilogy, so I'm rushing a tad to get this out in time. Let us see where it stands compared to the original that started this legacy franchise. Does it make a new baseline? Does it make the original obsolete? Is it worth playing? Is Spiral Mac and Cheese superior to the original in every way? Let's stop wasting time and find out the answers to all of these questions. Alright guys, so let's gear up, gather our allies, and let's tackle on this force together. This is Dragon Quest II, originally released for Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. Before we dive in, Spiral Mac and Cheese is better. It does taste different. You're wrong, Dad. Let's dive in. Look, this is a direct sequel, not even a full year after Dragon Quest I. I'm going to skip over a lot of what I just echoed from the first video, so once again, I'd check that out or at least be familiar with Dragon Quest I. I'm going to act like you know all this, so yeah, and I may or may not quiz you, so just a heads up. So, speedrun, the triad who worked on the original are all here after an amazing success of Dragon Quest I. Sugiyama composing, Toriyama drawing, and Hori at the helm. As you would expect of a sequel, the team strove to improve on pretty much every aspect. More games, more enemies, more story, more characters, more towns, more music, more. If you felt like one character was boring in a gameplay loop sense, the team has expanded to now 3 characters this time around, and more can be done, with each character having their own role to perform. So in January 1987, after a few delays and around 8 months of development time, Dragon Quest II was officially released. Christ, we have come a long way if that is considered a delay in development, huh? Jesus. The game came out to see similar praise and success from the media. Pretty much every aspect is praised as an improvement to the original. Moving to present day, we see the releases mimic the series' older sibling. I will spare the time here and say wait for the HD 2D of the sequel if you can. The Game Boy Color is fine though, and the mobile port still looks like a Flash game that I'd play on a sketchy site back in the mid-2000s. Kind of off topic here, but honestly, there's a Flash game I remember. It was a Castlevania game where Jesus was the final boss after doing a bunch of things, and he floated around on his crucifix, flinging more crosses at you. Just raised in a Christian household, I totally thought that was sending me on a one-way ticket to hell, but like, I mean, I still am going to hell probably, but just not for that. Yeah, that was totally irrelevant. Moving on. Last, I figured I'd mention the subtitle here, dubbed Luminaries of the Legendary Line. This was added after some time, as the original did not see this, but each main series game past one had some sort of subtitle, as well as almost all holding some sort of alliteration in the title. I'm a big alliteration advocate, so this is welcome. Except for 10, since we don't have an official localized title for that, since Square keeps pretending we do not exist. So I'm gonna pretend that that game doesn't exist and backpedal. So all mainline Dragon Quest games have alliteration in the title. What the fuck is a 10? Alright, let's wrap up here and actually go into the meat of this game. Following after the events of Dragon Quest I, the hero and Princess Gwaelin leave for lands past Alefgard to start their new life. While the hero has since passed, being 100 years in the future, we know one thing: that man had sex. We are playing as the descendants in the game, and they have pretty much spread all over the world. A castle by the name of Moonbrook. Peace seemingly has now ended, as minions of an evil priest by the name of Hargon set to raise the place down. The princess of the castle is hidden away by her father before getting killed by some of the demons. The castle falls and all soldiers perish. One lone survivor escaped, only to warn neighboring kingdoms of the attack. The soldier ends up bloodied and dying at the kingdom of Middenhall, where our new hero is the prince here. The soldier gives his final report to Middenhall's king and our hero before bleeding out in the throne room. Wow, kind of a dark start, But let's pick ourselves up and continue. The hero is tasked with defeating Hargon before more damage is done. Hargon's full attempt here is to summon a demon by the name of Malroth to destroy the world. The hero is not alone, however. He is informed to seek out his cousins, all descendants of Erdrick and the hero of Dragon Quest I. The Princess of Moonbrook's fate is unclear following the attack, but the nearby kingdom of Kanik has a prince who can assist. The hero begins his adventure to collect allies, and that is step 1 of our adventure. And I'm going to cut through the chase here. I really don't want to continue to refer to these 3 like this for the whole synopsis. So, while I could not find any clear names for all, I'm using what I named my hero. His name is Greg. Spelled like this. Yes, after my icon. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before in an official video yet, but yes, it's spelled terribly on purpose. Anyways, the prince and princess were given random names, I guess, so we went with Paul for the prince and Isolde for the princess. Say hi to him. After an annoying wild goose chase, Greg meets up with Paul and the duo set out for Moonahan, a town on the outskirts of the ruined Moonbrook. After finding a mirror that can show the true form of certain beings, a dog in Moonahan is discovered to be Isolde, saved from the beginning scene. Once returned to human, the 3 group up and now find a way to Hargon, who is holed up in Rowan Plateau, seemingly inaccessible at this point. The way is a lot more obscure for the Triad, but we have a much larger world to explore. Let's talk about battling. The gameplay is near identical with little tweaks here and there. Each of the 3 have their own ways of fighting. Greg is a physical tank, has the most defense and attack, and equips the best kinds of armor. He does not learn any magic, so his role is quite simple: bonk enemies. Paul admittedly kinda sucks. He has healing and offensive magic for sure, but so does Isolde. Paul equips a medium set of armor, but can't dish out the damage that Greg can. He's just worse in that aspect too, never reaching the physical numbers or magical spells that his 2 cousins get. Isolde is better at healing, learns Kaboom, arguably the best offensive spell in the game, and it does not target a group of enemies, and it goes for just nuking the entire screwing of enemies. He can cover a backup of what is needed, usually attacking or support when the situation calls for it. It just doesn't really have any other standout features. Other than expanding, the battling is still the same core, which is nice. The system ain't broke, so no need to reinvent the wheel sometimes. While there are 2 more party members, the game does not get easier, and in fact, I think it's a little harder. There are more points of grinding, more obtuse ways to navigate, enemy variety, and more. Nowhere near impossible, mind you, especially with the secret magical technique of the internet. Back to the story here. Not long after the gang finds a port town and gains access to a boat. A first for the series here. The game begins to open up a lot more here, but stopping at the first landmass you most likely will encounter is worth your time. If the layout doesn't tip you off alone with the map, the music will. Welcome back to Alefgard. This is such a cool touch, and looking at the map here, obviously scaled down quite a bit for the sequel, it just shows how small Alefgard is compared to the world Greg has now. It's such a cool touch, and I just really appreciate this aspect of the game. Most of the towns here seem to have dispersed or died, I guess, but Tanticle still remains, merged as a city and castle town in one. Also here is Sharlock, the Dragonlord's old castle. It's still standing. If you make the trek down to the lair, you'll find the descendant of the Dragonlord. Good to see our hero wasn't the only lad getting his freak on. GG Dragonlord, GG. Less evil than his ancestor, seemingly, he actually gives us the best clue so far, stating that the collection of 5 sigils is needed for the Isle of Rubis to continue to Hargon. Well, considering that's our best lead, we have a whole world to explore and 5 sigils to now collect. Cue that scavenger hunt reference from earlier. This part can be tedious without much of a guide. There are NPCs who will give you hints of locations of some of these 5 sigils, and you maybe will come across 1 or 2 of them on your own. Similar to 1, the party goes to towns collecting key items and trading them for the sigils and other goodies that may or may not help. A nice change is the introduction of reusable magic keys. The silver, gold, and jailer key open up specific doors as opposed to the original. I kind of skipped over this in my video, but you had single-use keys and you had to go back and forth to buy them. It also didn't help that your inventory was quite small, only being locked to 1 player. 3 characters means triple the inventory space, so thank God for the disposable keys was just a 1 game exclusive here. This game would probably suck if that was still here flat out. One more praise is more varied landscape the crew comes across. The beginning may have felt samey in terms of design, but the game has some neat towns like Burrowell, a town that is actually completely underground. It's just really cool. One praise for the Switch and mobile ports is that it's easier to respect these changes as there is a little bit more visual identity to it, but the HD 2D should make this version probably obsolete. While sparing the middle part, the crew eventually has to go around the world gathering all 5 sigils. Once they get them all, they get to the Isle of Rubis and get the Charm of Rubis, aptly named of course, being able to break illusion. With this, the crew has their best key to getting the Hargon, just unsure how to use it yet. Once breaking into the Plateau of Ronin, going through arguably the worst dungeon in the game, the team is at their final destination. Here lasts nothing but a shrine to rest at, Hargon's palace, a lot of ice, and suicidal demon monkeys. Seriously, fuck these guys. Nothing like losing half your gold to a kamikaze spell. Make use of that more recent version's bank and just stash your money in there if you're trying to save up for items. Don't make my mistake and fucking lose it all. Entering Hargon's palace for the first time shows Middenhall? Well, everyone is happy and telling you to forget your whole journey. Hargon's cool, right? Well, I guess that sounds good enough to me. That's it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace. Using the Charm of Rubus dispels the illusion and shows the true evil palace. At the top of this dungeon is Hargon, who luckily doesn't take too much to kill if well prepared. When dying, Hargon uses his body as an offering to the demon he was trying to summon earlier. And before the three can leave, Malroth arrives to stop them. Malroth is definitely tougher than the priest before him. He actually packs a pretty mean punch, and you gotta stay on your toes if you don't want Paul to die, because he was born with glass bones and paper skin or something like that. Once defeated, the crew leaves the crumbling castle and returns to Middenhall to tell the great news. Similar to the original, the team can stop by the locales on their way back and speak to hear praises of another tyrant taken down. Once satisfied with the worldwide glazing tour, Greg is named the King of Middenhall for his feats, with Paul and Isolde cheering behind. The cousins return home. Paul most likely continues to die at the slightest touch of anything, and Isolde rules to absolutely no one because all her family and subjects are now dead. And that's the game. The credits roll, and what we know, the land continues to know peace for the remainder of the time. Dragon Quest III is a prequel, as we all know. Sorry if you get spoiled in a 30-plus-year-old game. I cannot decide how I really feel over this game compared to the original. While 2 has more to it, I feel the length of the original makes up for the lack of depth it may carry. 2 continues the trend set with many of its mainstays and more party members, which is cool. A more in-depth story is also nice as well as adding more varied dungeons, town, and general world design. All of that is definitely a step in the right direction. Looking at it as best as I cannot say I like it any more than 1. It's a fine game, but definitely in the realm of some of the weaker entries for the mainline Dragon Quest series. It is more obtuse, and as previously stated, it's double, maybe triple the length of the original, especially if you're trying to do this as blind as possible. Once again, I had no shame in using a guide for the majority of this, because it's just kinda confusing at certain points. But who cares what I think? I'm curious to see where y'all stand in this game. How do you feel about Dragon Quest II? I honestly don't hear many people talk about it. Thanks for watching, y'all, and next time I reconvene with the questing, we should not only see Dragon Quest III, but a shiny new coat of paint for that legendary game. I want to thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching as always. I rushed this one to try to get it out as soon as possible while making it as good of quality as I can make it. I just really wanted to get this planned because I really like the series of Dragon Quest, want to talk about all the games, and nice little hype for the third game. So anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like, do what you gotta do, guys. Peace out. See ya.